The key turned with a resonant click, but Dr. Arthur Sterling sensed an unsettling aura the moment he stepped inside. A chilling premonition that his wife's infidelity was merely the first crack in the foundation of his carefully constructed life. December 22nd should have heralded twinkling lights and his daughter Lily's joyful chatter about festive arrangements. Instead, a palpable gloom enveloped him, seeping into the very pores of the house. Bethany, his voice, usually steady and resonant, reverberated through the empty entryway, a hollow question that elicited no response but the oppressive silence. He flicked on the lights, the sudden illumination stark against the oppressive shadows. The living room appeared meticulously arranged, almost pristine, akin to a museum display rather than a lived-in family space. There was no Christmas tree, no shimmering tinsel, no vibrant baubles, not even the hand-knitted stockings Lily had hung with childish enthusiasm every year since she was 6. A cold dread began to coil in his gut. His phone vibrated, a sharp jolt in the silent house. A text from his wife read, "Everything is fine. Enjoy your lecture trip. Chloe is here." Chloe, Bethany's 12-year-old daughter from her previous marriage. But where was Lily? Lily, his 15-year-old, brilliant and sensitive daughter. Arthur traversed the house, each step heavier than the last, his voice growing more urgent as he called her name. Her room stood stripped bare. The small, carefully labeled bottle of anxiety medication she took for PTSD following her mother's car accident was gone. Her worn copies of classic literature and graphic novels were gone. Even the cherished, slightly faded photograph of her deceased mother had vanished from her nightstand. His hands, usually so steady during delicate surgeries, trembled uncontrollably as he dialed Lily's number. The automated voice that answered felt like a physical blow. "The number you have dialed has been disconnected." Panic surged, cold and immediate. He rushed outside, the winter air biting his face but barely registering. That's when he saw it, a dark, black refuse bag by the curb, torn open by neighborhood cats, its contents spilling onto the damp concrete. Inside lay Lily's favorite teal suitcase, the one with the faded travel stickers from their last vacation. His knees buckled, sending him crashing to the concrete as he pulled out her clothes, her meticulously filled journals with their intricate doodles, her art supplies. Everything that defined Lily, discarded like refuse. At the very bottom, beneath a crumpled sketch of a weeping willow, he discovered a crumpled note in Bethany's distinctive, elegant handwriting. "Fresh start. Nobagi." The world reeled, the streetlights blurring into streaks of white. He fumbled for his phone, fingers cold and trembling, already poised to dial 911 when it buzzed in his hand, making him jump. It was his sister's number. "Arthur, thank goodness. Lily's here. She's been here since yesterday morning. She's in terrible shape, Arthur. She says Bethany told her to leave, said she was spoiling Christmas." The words were a lifeline and a fresh stab of betrayal all at once. Arthur found Lily curled into the farthest corner of his sister's sofa, as if attempting to physically meld into the fabric, to disappear entirely. Her knees were drawn tight to her chest, arms wrapped around them, the thin gray blanket too loosely draped to offer any real warmth. She didn't turn her head when he entered, didn't even blink, her gaze fixed on some unseen point in the distance. Her hands clutched her phone so fiercely, her knuckles white. He wondered if she still felt her fingers. Arthur knelt beside the couch, moving slowly, cautiously, his own heart aching with every measured breath to avoid startling her. "Lily," he whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears. No response, but her eyes flickered ever so slightly when he repeated her name, a faint recognition. He reached out, his hand hovering, and after a brief, agonizing hesitation, she allowed him to gently touch her cold, clammy hand. She still didn't look at him. "Dad," her voice cracked, a fragile whisper that tore at his soul. He pulled her close, feeling her small, shuddering frame against his. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here now." Lily's words came out in broken whispers, punctuated by soft, painful gasps for air. She said you agreed that you wanted a quiet Christmas without me, that I make everything too heavy. She said you needed space from all my problems. Arthur's vision blurred with a hot, visceral rage, a primal scream caught in his throat. "That's not true. None of that is true. Lily, I would never want you gone." "She packed my things while I was at school on Tuesday," Lily continued, her voice gaining a fragile strength. "When I came home, she had the suitcase by the door. She said the marriage counselor recommended it. That man who used to help me after Mom died, Simon. She said he told her I was toxic for the family dynamic, that I was holding you both back from having a fresh start in a peaceful home." Simon Blackwood, Lily's former therapist, a man Arthur had implicitly trusted with his daughter's fragile mental well-being after such profound loss. The betrayal was staggering. "We're going home right now," Arthur declared, his voice hard with resolve, pulling Lily closer. "This is a nightmare. It ends now." The drive back was filled with only Lily's quiet, intermittent sniffles, the desolate sound punctuating the tense silence in the car. Arthur's mind raced, pieces clicking into place with a horrifying clarity. Bethany's recent aloofness toward Lily, her sudden insistence that Lily's therapy sessions were beneficial even when Lily seemed more withdrawn, her newfound, almost obsessive interest in family dynamics and cleansing negative energy. The house was no longer dark when they arrived. Warm, inviting lights spilled from the windows, and festive Christmas music drifted from speakers. The perfect family tableau, minus one daughter. The calculated cruelty of it struck him cold. "Wait in the car, Lily," he instructed, his hand on her shoulder, his voice firm but gentle. "Dad, I don't want to cause trouble," she whispered, her eyes wide with apprehension. "You're not causing anything, sweetheart. I am. And this trouble is long overdue." Arthur stepped into a transformed house, the cheerful music grating on his nerves. A magnificent Christmas tree, perfectly proportioned and immaculately decorated with gilded ornaments, stood in the corner. Stockings, two of them, hung from the mantel, one for Bethany, one for Chloe. Chloe sat on the couch in a new, festive red dress, her eyes bright. Bethany emerged from the kitchen, wearing a pristine apron and a wide, artificial smile that vanished the moment her eyes met his. "Arthur, you're back early. How was the conference? I thought you weren't due back until tomorrow." "Where's Lily's stocking, Bethany?" he asked, his voice low, deceptively calm. Bethany's smile wavered, a flicker of unease in her eyes. She glanced at Chloe, then back at Arthur. "What do you mean? Where's my daughter's Christmas stocking? The one that's been hung here for 8 years? The one she decorated herself every year?" Chloe looked up from her book, sensing the mounting tension, her innocent face reflecting confusion. Bethany smoothed her apron, a nervous habit. "Arthur, darling, we need to talk privately about this. Not in front of Chloe. No, we talk here now. Where is Lily?" He took a step closer, his eyes boring into hers. "She's fine. She's with your sister, isn't she? I thought it would be better for everyone a little space for the holidays. You know how she gets." She forced a bright, brittle smile. "You thought what would be better, Bethany? Tossing her belongings in a trash bag by the curb? Disconnecting her phone so I couldn't reach her? Making my 15-year-old daughter believe I wanted her gone, that she was toxic to her own family?" Bethany's face hardened, her previous attempts at pleasantry completely gone. "Don't be so dramatic, Arthur. This is what's best for everyone. Lily doesn't fit here anymore. She's always been difficult, always bringing such a heavy cloud into the house. And after the therapy sessions with Simon, we realized Simon recommended this?" Arthur cut her off, his voice incredulous. "Yes, he's a professional. The therapist claimed Lily's trauma was overwhelming Chloe, impacting our new family dynamic. He insisted she needed distance, a fresh environment for both her and for us to truly heal. A cold dread settled in Arthur's chest, chilling him to the bone. And where exactly was Lily supposed to process this fresh environment? On the street? At your sister's house? Unannounced? For Christmas Eve? Or perhaps in a ditch somewhere, discarded like her suitcase? It's temporary, of course, until we can find a right boarding school. Simon knows some excellent facilities, very discreet, very specialized. Boarding school, Arthur's voice was barely a whisper, laced with disbelief and fury. You want to send my daughter to boarding school? My daughter, who just lost her mother, who struggles with PTSD, who needs her family more than anything. According to Simon, this was the only solution. Fresh environment, specialized care, a chance for Chloe to thrive without competition. He said it would be good for her to be in a place where her negative energy wouldn't contaminate the family unit. Stop saying his name. Bethany blinked, taken aback by the sudden iciness in his tone, the steel in his eyes. Where is he right now, Bethany? What? Why would you ask that? He's probably with his own family. It's almost Christmas Eve. She sounded genuinely flustered. Because my daughter is sitting in my car, convinced her father abandoned her, and that she's a burden, while you're playing house with my stepdaughter in a perfectly decorated home where her own stocking doesn't even exist. So I'm wondering where your therapist friend is tonight. Bethany's face went pale, a guilty flush creeping up her neck. You're being paranoid, Arthur. Am I? Chloe, honey, can you go to your room for a few minutes, please? I need to speak to your mother about something private. Chloe glanced between them, her eyes wide with apprehension, then quickly disappeared upstairs, sensing the unspoken tension. Now, Arthur said, closing the distance between them, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Let's talk about Simon Blackwood. Bethany's composure cracked completely. Her hands flew to her face. Arthur, you're scaring me. Good, he retorted, his voice devoid of warmth. Because I'm scared too. Scared of what I'm going to find when I start digging into your little arrangement. Scared of how long this has been going on right under my nose. Scared of what you've done to my daughter or my family. I haven't done anything wrong, she cried, her voice rising. You threw a child out of her home 3 days before Christmas and told her it was my idea. What part of that isn't wrong? What part of that isn't monstrous? Bethany backed toward the kitchen, her eyes darting around as if seeking an escape. Lily needed space. She was becoming too attached, too dependent on you. Simon said, There it is again. Arthur interrupted, his voice laced with venom. Simon said, Simon thinks. When did his opinion become more important than mine? When did this so-called professional become the supreme authority in my house about my daughter? He's a professional, Arthur. He understands trauma. He understands something you never did about our family dynamic, she shrieked. All right, Arthur said, pulling out his phone with a deliberate slowness that spoke volumes. Let's call him right now. Let's discuss Lily's treatment plan together, you, me, and the man who recommended abandoning a child in the dead of winter. No, you can't just call him. He's busy. He's with his own family for Christmas. Bethany stammered, her eyes wide with panic. At 9:30 on a Thursday night, doing what exactly? Bethany's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. I think I'm starting to understand, Arthur mused, his voice dangerously quiet. He walked to the kitchen and began opening drawers methodically. Where do you keep the important papers, Bethany? Bank statements? Credit card bills? Investment portfolios? What are you doing? You can't just go through our financial records. Those are private, she exclaimed, her voice frantic. Our records, Arthur repeated, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Interesting choice of words, given what I suspect I'm about to find. He located the filing cabinet. It was locked. Where's the key, Bethany? Arthur, please, let's sit down and talk about this like adults. We can work through this. Adults don't abandon children, Bethany. Adults don't forge signatures on bank documents. Adults don't drain joint accounts to fund their little side projects. He examined the cheap, decorative lock on the cabinet. It looked flimsy. Adults don't steal from their spouses to fund affairs with their daughter's therapist. Arthur looked at her directly, his gaze piercing. I'm talking about the fact that you won't let me call your therapist friend. I'm talking about the fact that Lily's treatment suddenly required her immediate removal from the home. I'm talking about the fact that there's no Christmas tree receipt in this house. I would have seen it, but there's a perfectly decorated tree here now. A tree that arrived sometime in the last few days without my knowledge or input. He walked to the front window, drawing back the curtain just enough to peer outside. And I'm also talking about the dark sedan parked 3 houses down that's been there since I got home. The one with the personalized license plate that starts with SDB. Simon Daniel Blackwood, perhaps. Bethany's face went utterly white, all color draining from her cheeks. Her eyes darted from his face to the window and back again. He's watching the house, isn't he? Arthur pressed, his voice laced with an awful certainty. Waiting for me to leave so he can come back in and resume playing the loving family man. How long has this been going on, Bethany? How long have you two been planning to get rid of my daughter and replace her with your little fantasy family? It's not like that. Bethany crumpled into a kitchen chair, tears finally flowing, large, shuddering sobs racking her frame. I love you, Arthur. I love our family. But Lily, she's been so difficult since she turned 15. The nightmares, the mood swings, the way she looks at me like I'm the enemy, like I'm to blame for everything. Simon helped me see that maybe she'd be happier somewhere else. That we'd be happier. Somewhere else like a boarding school that costs $50,000 a year, based on the brochures I've seen. How did you, lucky guess? Arthur sneered, looking down at the filing cabinet. With a hard yank, the cheap lock popped open, sending screws scattering across the floor. He pulled out bank statements, credit card bills, investment records. What he found made him colder than any December night. A new account in his name, opened without his knowledge or consent, a forged signature glaring at him from the signature card. Tuition payments, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to Havenwood Academy for young people. Multiple large transfer payments to Simon Blackwood Therapeutic Services. A 3-month advance on a luxury cabin rental in the mountains, booked for the new year. And a paper trail of credit card bills showing designer clothes, expensive dinners, and a receipt for delicate, lacy lingerie he'd never seen Bethany wear. All signed with his forged signature. Good heavens, Bethany! He exploded, the quiet fury finally breaking into a roar. What have you done? Arthur, I can't explain, she wailed, scrambling to her feet. Explain what? Explain how you drained our accounts, my accounts, behind my back to pay for this elaborate betrayal? Explain how you've been planning this with your lover for months, maybe years, while I was out there working to provide for our family. Explain how you used Lily's trauma as a weapon to achieve your sordid goals. He's not my lover, she screamed back, defiant through her tears. Then why is his car still parked down the street, Bethany? Why are there hotel receipts here from the exact same dates I was at medical conferences? Why is there a receipt for lingerie I've never seen you wear, purchased just last week? Bethany started sobbing uncontrollably, her face contorted. But Arthur felt nothing, no sympathy, no regret, just a cold, calculating fury that hardened his resolve. Here's what's going to happen, he said quietly, his voice dangerously even. You're going to call Simon right now and tell him to drive away, to disappear. Then you're going to pack your things tonight. Every single one of them. You'll be out of this house by dawn. Arthur, please, you can't. I'm not finished. Tomorrow morning, you go to the bank with me to reverse every fraudulent transaction you made using my name. You're going to confess to the financial crimes you've committed, and you're going to beg my daughter for forgiveness, though I doubt she'll give it to you. I can't. You don't understand the position this puts me in, Arthur. My reputation, my life. I understand perfectly. You're a criminal, Bethany. You conspired with a licensed therapist to commit fraud and child abandonment. The only position this puts you in is prison. A long stay in a nice, cold cell. Bethany stood up, anger replacing tears on her face, a new defiance in her eyes. You can't prove anything, Arthur. It's my word against yours. Who's going to believe you? Can't I? He challenged, a grim smile touching his lips. He raised his voice slightly. Chloe, Chloe, honey, can you come down for a minute, please? Chloe appeared at the top of the stairs, looking frightened and confused. Chloe, honey, I need to ask you something very important, and I need you to tell me the truth. While I was at my conference last week, did anyone stay here overnight? Someone other than you and your mom. Chloe glanced at her mother, who was now rigid with fear, then back at Arthur. Her lips trembled. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, Dad. You won't, sweetheart. I promise. You're just helping me understand what happened. I just need to know the truth. Mr. Simon came for dinner, Chloe said, her voice barely a whisper. He slept in your room. Mom said you knew about it. She said it was part of Lily's therapy, that it was important for the family to spend time with him. She hesitated, then added softly, her eyes welling up. She told me not to say anything to you about it. Said it would hurt your feelings if I brought it up because you were too busy with work to care. The final, sickening piece clicked into place. Arthur looked at Bethany, his gaze filled with icy contempt. Get out, Bethany. Get out of my house now before I call the police and tell them everything. You can't throw me out. I live here. This is my home too. You committed fraud using my name. You abandoned my child. You brought your lover into my bed, into my home, while my children were sleeping under this roof. Try me. See how quickly a judge agrees you have any right to be here. Bethany's face twisted into something ugly, a mask of pure hatred. Fine, but you'll never get Chloe. She's my daughter, and she'll never choose you over me. You think she'll stay with you after all this? Chloe. Arthur turned to the 12-year-old, standing frozen on the stairs, tears streaming down her face. Do you want to stay here with me and Lily, or go with your mother? Chloe looked between them, her eyes wide with terror, clearly torn. Her lips quivered uncontrollably. I don't know. I love Mom, but... She looked toward the front door where Bethany had gone, then back at Arthur, her gaze settling on Lily's bedroom door, which was still closed. I don't want Lily to be alone anymore, Dad. The betrayal on Bethany's face was complete, a final, shattering blow. With a guttural cry of rage, Bethany stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle windows and send a shiver down Arthur's spine. Arthur waited 30 seconds, listening to the fading sound of Bethany's hasty footsteps, then walked to the front window. The dark sedan was gone, no longer a menacing presence in the quiet street. He turned to Chloe, still standing on the stairs, looking lost and utterly heartbroken. Are you okay, sweetheart? She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Is Lily really coming home? Is she really staying? She never left, Chloe. This is her home. It's always been her home, and it always will be. Chloe's face crumpled, and she ran down the last few steps, burying her face in Arthur's shirt. I am sorry, Dad. I wanted to tell you about Mr. Simon, about him staying over, but Mom said it would hurt your feelings. She said you were too busy with work to care about us anyway. Arthur sat on the bottom step and pulled Chloe into a tight, comforting hug. You did nothing wrong, nothing, my brave girl. And I always care about you and Lily. Both of you, more than anything in the world. Arthur went outside to retrieve Lily from the car. She was asleep, curled up like a wounded animal, a fragile figure illuminated by the soft glow of the streetlights. When he gently woke her, she looked around in confusion, her eyes clouded with remnants of a nightmare. Are we really going inside, Dad? She whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. Are we really going home? This is your home, Lily. It's always been your home. You're safe here. The reunion was initially awkward, charged with unspoken pain and lingering fear. Chloe stood near the doorway to the living room, arms wrapped around herself, her backpack still slung over one shoulder as if she were unsure she truly belonged. Lily sat at the very edge of the couch, knees pressed together, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Neither moved, a palpable chasm of silence, and unspoken hurt stretching between them. Arthur stood in the kitchen doorway, silently observing the painful distance, the unspoken questions in their young eyes. He didn't interrupt. He simply placed 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate, topped with whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon, on the coffee table and stepped back, retreating to the kitchen. "I didn't know," Chloe finally said, her voice cracking on the last word, the sound barely audible. Lily didn't look up, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from her mug. "You didn't ask," she said, quiet but flat, devoid of emotion. "I didn't know how." Chloe's chin trembled, tears welling in her eyes again. I thought maybe you wanted to go, that you were angry at me, at us. Mom said it was your decision, that you needed space from us." Lily blinked hard once, a single tear escaping. "It wasn't," she stated, her voice still quiet but gaining a fragile strength. Then, with a suddenness that startled Arthur, Chloe dropped her bag to the floor with a soft thud and crossed the room in 3 quick steps. She sat down beside Lily, her body almost touching, and reached out tentatively, her hand hovering over Lily's arm. Lily didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," Chloe whispered, the words thick with genuine remorse, "for believing her, for not fighting harder for you, for not seeing it." Lily finally turned toward her, slowly, her face calm, but her eyes were wet. "You're here now," Lily said, her voice barely a breath. And that was it. The invisible wall shattered. Chloe collapsed into her arms, wrapping her tightly, burying her face in Lily's shoulder. Lily allowed it. She didn't hug back right away, but she didn't push her away either, her small frame slowly relaxing into the embrace. Arthur watched from the hallway, his throat tight, a lump forming that he couldn't swallow. He didn't need to say anything. He made hot chocolate and let them talk, their quiet, broken words a balm. He retreated to his office, the girls' soft murmurs a comforting background as he made phone calls. The first call was to his lawyer, Robert Davies, a no-nonsense family law specialist with a sharp mind. "Arthur, it's late. Is everything okay?" Robert's voice was laced with concern. "Robert, I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning." "No, not tomorrow, today. It's a full-blown emergency. I have a situation involving profound financial fraud, criminal forgery, and severe child endangerment, all conspired by my wife and her accomplice." "Good heavens, Arthur. Are you safe? Are the kids safe? What are you talking about?" "We're safe now, but it's precarious. I need to move fast. My wife has been systematically forging my signature on financial documents, draining our accounts, and she conspired with a licensed therapist to remove my daughter from her home and send her away permanently. I have the evidence. Bring everything you have, documents, receipts, texts, anything. I'll clear my entire morning." "This sounds explosive." The second call was to the state medical board, his voice clipped and precise. "I need to file an immediate, serious complaint against a licensed therapist for gross ethics violations, professional misconduct, and potential fraud and manipulation of a minor." Arthur provided Simon Blackwood's full name and license number, found on old therapy invoices he'd suddenly remembered. He detailed the inappropriate relationship with a client's family member, the fraudulent financial arrangements, and the disturbing, professionally unethical recommendation for the forced removal of a minor from her home under false pretenses. The third call was to his bank's fraud department. "I need to report extensive fraudulent activity on my accounts, including unauthorized account openings and large transfers. I suspect my signature has been forged." By the time he finished making calls, it was well past midnight, the house finally settling into a quiet hum. Both girls had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted by the day's emotional turmoil, Chloe's arm protectively around Lily. Arthur covered them with blankets, a silent promise of safety, and went to his bedroom. Bethany's things were gone, her absence a stark, chilling void, but her scent, a mix of her perfume and something acrid he now associated with deception lingered on the pillows. He stripped the bed down to the mattress, threw everything in the washing machine on the hottest cycle, and remade it with fresh, crisp sheets. Then he sat on the edge and allowed himself to feel the full, crushing weight of what had transpired. His marriage was irrevocably over. His trust was shattered into a million pieces. His daughter had been deeply traumatized, and his entire life, once so orderly, was now a chaotic mess. But they were all safe now, under his roof, and that, he realized, was what truly mattered. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You don't know what you're dealing with. You'll regret this." Arthur stared at the anonymous message, a cold resolve hardening his features, then typed back a single defiant phrase. "Try me." 3 dots appeared, indicating the sender was typing, then vanished. Then nothing. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and police reports and difficult, painful conversations. Tomorrow would bring the real fight. But tonight, his daughters were home and safe. That was enough for now. Arthur awoke at 5 a.m. to his phone ringing insistently. It was Bethany's number. "Arthur, we need to talk. He says you went to the police today," she wailed, her voice frantic. "I thought I made myself perfectly clear last night, Bethany. There's nothing more to discuss. You don't understand. Simon says you might press charges. He says you can't just make accusations without proof. He's threatening me, Arthur. Is Simon there with you right now, Bethany?" Silence on the line, heavy and telling. "I'll take that as a yes. Tell him I said hello. Tell him I'll be seeing him very soon in court." "Arthur, please, let's not make this ugly. We can work something out, some sort of agreement for Chloe's sake, for everyone." Her voice was pleading, desperate. "It's already ugly, Bethany. You made it ugly when you shattered Lily's sense of home, her very being. You made it ugly when you stole from me. You made it ugly when you sent her away, making her believe she was unwanted, unloved, a burden to her own father. There's no working anything out now. I was trying to help her. I was trying to help us. By stealing from me? By lying to her face? By bringing your lover into my bed, into my home, while my children were in the very next room? How, in God's name, was any of that helping? You can't prove any of that. It's all speculation." Arthur smiled grimly, a cold, humorless expression. "Actually, I can. Chloe told me everything about Simon staying over, about your instructions to keep a secret. Your phone records, which the police will obtain, will show the extensive communication between you two. The bank records I found last night clearly show the fraud, the money transfers, the luxury purchases. And I have something else you don't know about, Bethany." "What?" she asked, her voice tight with a fresh wave of fear. Lily, bless her intelligent, cautious heart, kept a diary. Detailed entries about every conversation she had with Simon during her therapy sessions. Every insidious suggestion he made about her being toxic to the family, about her negative energy contaminating the household. Every time he asked inappropriate, probing questions about our marriage, about my relationship with Lily, about my income. Every time he explicitly recommended she be removed from the home for the family's healing. He paused, letting that sink in. He could hear Bethany's sharp intake of breath on the other end, a desperate gasp. She also, quite wisely, recorded some of their sessions on her phone. The ones where he talked about how much happier you'd be without her around. The ones where he talked about your special connection with him, about your relationship, about a future together without Lily in the way. That's impossible. Patient confidentiality. That's illegal, she shrieked, a note of hysteria entering her voice. Patient confidentiality doesn't apply when a therapist is manipulating a minor to benefit his illicit affair with her stepmother, Bethany. It certainly doesn't apply when a therapist is actively conspiring to commit child abandonment and financial fraud. Lily's 15, Bethany. She's smart, and she knew something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. The line went quiet, a long, agonizing silence. Finally, Bethany's voice, small and defeated, broke through. What do you want? I want you to turn yourself in. Both of you. I want you to confess to the fraud, the forgery, and the conspiracy to abandon a child. And I want you to stay away from my children, from Lily and from Chloe, permanently. And if I don't, her voice was barely a whisper, then I release everything to the police, the state medical board, your employer, and the media. Simon loses his license, his entire career, and probably goes to prison for a very long time. You lose Chloe. A judge won't give custody to a convicted criminal, and you lose any claim to our assets. And everyone in this town, everyone who ever knew you, will know exactly what kind of people you both truly are. You wouldn't destroy Chloe's life just to hurt me, she cried, a last, desperate attempt to appeal to his parental instincts. I'm not destroying Chloe's life, Bethany. You already did that when you chose him over her. I'm just cleaning up the mess you left behind. Bethany hung up, the click sharp and final. Arthur made breakfast for the girls, keeping his tone light and conversational despite the storm brewing around them, despite the bitter taste in his mouth. Chloe picked at her food nervously, her eyes still red-rimmed. "Dad, what's going to happen to Mom?" she asked, her voice small. "I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, you'll be taken care of. I promise you that. You'll be safe here, always." Lily looked up from her eggs, her gaze surprisingly steady. "Is she really not coming back? Do you want her to come back, Lily?" Lily considered this seriously, her brow furrowed in thought. "I want the mom who used to help me with homework and make me feel safe, who baked cookies and laughed with me. But that person, I don't think she exists anymore. And the person who sent me away, no." Arthur's heart fractured a little more. Maybe she does. Maybe someday she'll remember how to be that person again, if she gets the help she truly needs. But right now, she's not safe for either of you to be around. After breakfast, Arthur drove the girls to school and headed directly to his lawyer's office. Robert Davies had already cleared his schedule, a serious expression on his face. "This is bad, Arthur. Really bad. As in, potential felony charges for both of them bad." Robert spread the documents Arthur had brought across his large conference table. "The financial fraud alone is a felony, given the amounts. Add in the child endangerment, the ethics violations, the manipulation of a minor. If this holds, they're both facing real, significant prison time." "What about Chloe?" Arthur asked, his greatest concern. "Can Bethany take her away from me if this goes to court? Not if she's convicted of fraud, and most certainly not if Child Services determines that Chloe was endangered or severely traumatized by the situation. A judge isn't going to give custody to a woman who committed crimes, abandoned one child, and brought her lover around minor children under false pretenses. What do you recommend we do?" Arthur asked, leaning forward, his jaw tight. Robert smiled grimly. "File everything. Police report for the fraud. Ethics complaint against the therapist. Emergency custody motion for Chloe. And immediate restraining orders for both girls against Bethany and Simon. Hit them with everything at once and hit them hard. Leave them no room to maneuver. Won't that make them desperate? More likely to run or do something stupid?" "Precisely," Robert said, his eyes glinting. "That's exactly what I'm counting on. Desperate people make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, they give us more evidence. It will accelerate the process." They spent the morning filing paperwork, a detailed police report for the fraud and forgery, a comprehensive child services report for the endangerment and psychological abuse of Lily and the manipulative influence on Chloe, an emergency custody motion for Chloe, since her mother was now a flight risk and facing serious charges, and restraining orders preventing both Bethany and Simon from contacting either girl in any capacity. By noon, the legal machinery was fully in motion, a powerful, grinding force set against Bethany and Simon. Arthur's phone rang as he was leaving the courthouse. It was Detective Brenda Miller from the Financial Crimes Unit, her voice calm and professional. "Dr. Sterling, this is Detective Miller. We've reviewed your complaint. It's substantial. We'd like to bring you in to give a formal, sworn statement this afternoon. And with your permission, We'd like to speak with your daughters as well. We have child interview specialists on staff who can ensure they're comfortable. Whatever you need, Detective. They're both willing to speak to you. There's something else, Dr. Sterling. We did some preliminary checking on Simon Blackwood. He's been investigated twice before by the state board for inappropriate relationships with clients and for unusual therapeutic recommendations. No charges were filed in those cases due to lack of hard evidence, but there's a distinct, troubling pattern here. Arthur felt a chill crawl down his spine. What kind of pattern? Targeting vulnerable families, usually women going through difficult divorces or dealing with traumatized children. He insinuates himself as a helper, a savior, then manipulates the situation to his financial and personal advantage, often exploiting the emotional vulnerability of the adult client and alienating the children. Your case, Dr. Sterling, might be the key to finally stopping him. This goes way beyond your family. We think you might have uncovered something much bigger. What do you need from me? Arthur asked, a new sense of grim purpose settling over him. Everything you have, every piece of evidence. In your daughter's detailed testimony about what he said to them, what he made them believe. Their words are crucial. Arthur picked up the girls from school early, explaining that they needed to speak with a detective about what had happened. Lily seemed relieved, a quiet determination in her eyes, eager to finally tell her story to someone who would believe her. Chloe, however, was terrified, her face pale. "Am I in trouble, Dad?" she whispered in the car, clutching his hand. "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble. You're doing something incredibly brave and important. You're helping to protect other kids from being hurt the way you and Lily were hurt by bad people. You're being a hero." The police station was less intimidating than Arthur expected, more like a government office than a jail. Detective Miller was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner that put both girls at ease, despite their apprehension. "I want you both to know that you are not in any trouble whatsoever," she told them, her voice calm and reassuring. "We're here because some adults made very bad choices, and we need to understand exactly what happened so we can ensure it doesn't happen to other children. You're here to help us." Lily's testimony was devastating. She described months of therapy sessions where Simon Blackwood had gradually, subtly convinced her that she was harmful to her family's happiness, how he suggested that her trauma from her mother's passing was infecting the household, creating a toxic dynamic. She recounted how he systematically eroded her self-worth, making her feel like a burden, and how he repeatedly recommended that she might be happier in a structured environment away from home, a special school that would cure her negative influence. He said Dad would be relieved if I wasn't around to remind him of Mom all the time, Lily said, tears streaming down her face, her voice cracking with raw pain. He said I was keeping Dad from being truly happy in his new marriage, that I was a barrier to their fresh start. Chloe's testimony was equally damaging, though less direct. She described Simon staying overnight multiple times when Arthur was away at conferences, how her mother told her it was therapeutic for adults to have special friendships when they were helping families heal. He gave Mom presents, Chloe said, her voice small, jewelry and flowers. He called it therapeutic, that she deserved to feel appreciated for all the hard work she was doing with Lily and making our family complete. Detective Miller took careful, meticulous notes, her expression growing darker and more grim with each revelation, each manipulative detail. "Girls," Detective Miller asked, her voice low and serious, "I need to ask you something very important. Did Mr. Simon ever touch you inappropriately? Did he ever ask you to keep secrets about things that made you uncomfortable, things that felt wrong?" Both girls shook their heads vigorously, but Lily hesitated, a faint furrow appearing between her brows. "What is it, honey?" Arthur asked, his heart seizing. "He asked me questions about you and Mom," Lily confessed, her voice barely a whisper, her gaze fixed on her hands. "About whether you were happy together. About whether you and Mom, were still romantic." He said it was important for family therapy, for understanding the family dynamic, but it felt weird. It made me uncomfortable. Detective Miller and Arthur exchanged grave glances. The full, predatory pattern was becoming horrifyingly clear. After the interviews, Detective Miller walked them to the parking lot. Dr. Sterling, we're going to move quickly on this. Based on what your daughters told us, combined with the financial evidence you provided, we have more than enough for immediate arrest warrants for both Simon Blackwood and Bethany Rivers. But I want to warn you, people like Simon Blackwood don't go down quietly. He's going to fight back, and he's going to try every tactic imaginable to discredit you and your family, to paint you as the villain. What should I expect? Arthur asked, steeling himself. Intimidation tactics. He might try to claim that you're making false accusations to cover up your own marital problems or some other dark secret. He might even try to turn Bethany against you completely, convince her that you're the real threat, the one manipulating her and the girls. He's very good at twisting reality. She's already turned against me, detective. Maybe. But people in her situation, when they're facing prison, sometimes wake up to how badly they've been manipulated. Don't be surprised if she reaches out to you when the walls start closing in on her. That evening, Arthur made dinner while the girls did homework at the kitchen table. It almost felt normal, a fragile domesticity returning, except for the lingering tension hanging in the air like a cold mist. His phone rang. It was Bethany again, her number flashing on the screen. Arthur, please don't hang up, she pleaded, her voice choked with tears. What do you want, Bethany? His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Simon says you went to the police today. He says you're making serious accusations that could ruin his career, that they're saying he's a predator. His career should be ruined, Bethany. He is a predator, and he's going to prison. So are you. He's not. He helped me see that Lily needed professional care. He helped me understand that our marriage was in trouble because of the stress of Lily's issues. Bethany, listen to yourself. He manipulated you into abandoning a child, my child. He convinced you to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from me to pay for it. He seduced you while you were vulnerable and confused. How, in any twisted reality, is any of that helping you? You don't understand what it's been like for me, Arthur. Lily's problems, your never-ending work schedule, the constant pressure of trying to blend our families, to make Chloe happy, to make you happy. Simon was the only one who listened to me, the only one who truly understood. I listened to you. I went to marriage counseling with you. I tried to support you through everything. I worked tirelessly to provide for this family. But you loved her more. You always loved Lily more than Chloe, more than me. Simon helped me see that. He said I needed to prioritize my real family. Arthur felt something break inside his chest, a final, irreparable fissure. You're absolutely right, Bethany. I do love Lily more than I love you. She's my daughter. She's innocent. She's been through more trauma in her 15 years than you've faced in your entire life. And she's still a better person than you turn out to be. A more compassionate, more honest person than you could ever hope to be. How can you say that to me? She sobbed, outraged. Because it's true, Bethany. And deep down, you know it's true. That's why you're so angry. Because you know what you did was unforgivable. And now you're facing the consequences. Bethany's sobs intensified. Simon says we should leave town tonight. Start over somewhere else. Disappear. He says you'll never stop coming after us. He's right about that. Arthur said, his voice hard. I won't. Not until justice is served for Lily and for every other family he's destroyed. Arthur, please. I know I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we can fix this. We can get counseling, real counseling. We can make this work. Please don't destroy my life. No, we can't, Bethany. Because I don't trust you anymore, and I never will. Because you threw away my daughter like she was garbage. Because you brought your lover into my home and made my children lie about it. Because you stole from me, methodically, to fund your betrayal. It's over. I'll make it right. I'll pay back the money. Every cent. With what? You don't have a job anymore, do you? Silence on the line, a sudden, sharp intake of breath. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Your employer, your former employer, received an anonymous tip about your erratic behavior, about strange absences, and possible substance issues. Something about missing work for secret therapy appointments and making unusual financial decisions. They launched an internal investigation. Arthur paused, allowing her to process this. Turns out Simon has been calling into your office, claiming to be your doctor, requesting extended leave for your mental health treatment. All without your knowledge, of course. He was isolating you, wasn't he? Making you reliant only on him. More silence. Bethany, are you starting to see the pattern here? How Simon has been systematically isolating you from everyone who might question his influence. How he's been making decisions about your life without your input for his own benefit. He was trying to help me, she whispered, her voice fragile. He was trying to control you, Bethany, the same way he controlled his previous victims. The way he preyed on those vulnerable women in the past. Previous victims? What are you talking about, Arthur? What other victims? Ask him, Bethany. Ask him about the 2 other ethics investigations. Ask him about the other families he's destroyed, the children he's alienated from their parents. Ask him why he keeps targeting women with teenage children. The line went quiet for a long, agonizing moment. Arthur could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. The dawning, horrifying realization. I have to go, Bethany whispered, her voice barely audible. Bethany, wait, Arthur said, a sudden urgency in his voice. If you want to make this right, if you want a chance at redemption, there's still time. Come forward. Tell the truth about everything that happened. Help us stop him from hurting other families, from destroying other children's lives. I can't. You don't understand what he'll do to me if I betray him. He has things on me, Arthur. What he'll do to you, Bethany? What has he threatened you with? But the line was already dead. Arthur stared at his phone, a new, chilling understanding dawning. Bethany wasn't just Simon's willing lover and co-conspirator. She was his victim too, albeit one who had caused immense harm. That didn't excuse what she'd done to Lily, to him, to their family, but explained a lot about how she'd gotten to this terrifying point. He was going to destroy Simon Blackwood, systematically and utterly, but maybe, just maybe, he could still save Bethany from him. The arrest warrants were executed at dawn on Christmas Eve, a cold, clear morning. Arthur was making pancakes for the girls, the scent of vanilla and sugar filling the kitchen, when Detective Miller called. We got them both, Dr. Sterling. Simon at his apartment, Bethany at a motel just outside town. They were planning to run, had packed bags, but we were faster. Arthur felt a surge of grim satisfaction, mixed with a profound sadness that this was their Christmas. How did Bethany seem? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Scared, confused, and, quite honestly, a little lost. She kept asking about her daughter, Chloe. Simon, on the other hand, was arrogant and defiant right up until he put the handcuffs on. Started making threats about lawsuits and false accusations, claiming he was being persecuted for his groundbreaking therapeutic methods. What happens now, Detective? Arraignment this afternoon. They'll probably make bail, given their resources, but there'll be strict conditions. No contact with you or the girls. No leaving the county. Standard stuff. As for Chloe, she stays with you, Dr. Sterling. Child Services reviewed the case file and agreed that you're the safest, most stable placement. Bethany's parental rights are suspended pending the outcome of the criminal case and Child Services' long-term evaluation. After breakfast, Arthur sat the girls down in the living room, the newly decorated Christmas tree casting a warm glow. Your mother and Simon were arrested this morning, he told them, his voice gentle but firm. Chloe started crying immediately, soft, heartbroken sobs. Lily just nodded slowly, her face pale, like she'd been expecting it, preparing herself for this inevitability. What does that mean, Dad? Chloe asked through her tears. It means they have to go to court and answer for what they did. It means they can't contact us or bother us while the legal process plays out. And it means you're both safe here with me, indefinitely. Is Mom going to prison? Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on a lot of things. But whatever happens, you'll always have a home here. Always. Chloe leaned against Arthur's shoulder, seeking comfort. I miss the way Mom used to be before all this started. She confessed, her voice muffled. I know, honey. I miss her too. But the woman we miss, I don't think she's been around for a long time. Lily spoke up quietly, her gaze fixed on the twinkling lights of the tree. Do you think she'll get better in jail? I mean, do you think she'll remember who she used to be? Maybe, Lily. People can change if they want it badly enough, if they take responsibility for their actions. But that's her choice to make, not ours. That afternoon, Arthur and the girls redecorated the Christmas tree that Bethany had put up, transforming it into their own. They hung Lily's stocking next to Chloe's, adding new, quirky ornaments that reflected their personalities. Arthur found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks, a feeling of fragile hope blossoming in his chest. The girls were starting to act like sisters again, their shared trauma a strange binding force. Chloe kept apologizing for not speaking up sooner, her words earnest, and Lily kept reassuring her that none of this nightmare, was her fault. They were healing each other in ways that no therapist, certainly not Simon Blackwood, ever could. Arthur's phone rang. It was his lawyer. Arthur, there's been a development. Bethany wants to meet with you. She's reaching out to the prosecutor. Absolutely not, Robert. I want nothing to do with her right now. Hear me out, Arthur. She wants to confess. She wants to testify against Simon Blackwood, providing full, detailed testimony about his manipulations and the extent of his criminal behavior. But she'll only do it if she can see Chloe first, and if she knows she won't go to prison. Arthur looked at his daughters, who were now arguing good-naturedly about ornament placement, their laughter echoing softly. What's the catch, Robert? No catch that I can see. The prosecutor thinks her testimony could put Simon away for a very long time, possibly for life, given his history. Without it, he might get a plea deal and be back on the street in a few years, free to prey on other families. If she testifies, full immunity on the financial crimes in exchange for her cooperation. She'll still lose custody of Chloe permanently, but she won't go to prison. And she'll be under mandatory psychiatric evaluation indefinitely. It's a chance for true justice for all of Simon's victims, not just your family. Arthur considered this, his mind racing. Prison wouldn't undo the damage Bethany had caused, but stopping Simon from hurting other families, from ruining other innocent lives, might mean something profound. I need to talk to the girls about this, he said, his voice hesitant. Of course. But Arthur, don't wait too long. Simon's lawyer is already trying to convince him to flip on Bethany, to shift all blame to her. If he testifies first, her immunity offer disappears, and she faces serious prison time. This is time-sensitive. That evening, Arthur explained the difficult situation to Chloe and Lily, laying out the pros and cons, the complex moral calculus. I want to see her, Dad, Chloe said immediately, her eyes wide and determined. I want to ask her why she did it. I need to understand. Lily was more hesitant, her face thoughtful. What if she tries to manipulate us again? What if this is all just another lie, another trap? It could be, sweetheart, Arthur admitted, his heart aching for their pain. It's a risk, but it could also be her trying, for the first time in a long time, to make things truly right. And either way, you two get to decide what you want to say to her. You get to control the narrative this time. And I will be there every second, right beside you. Will you be there if you want me to be? Both girls nodded slowly, a shared resolution hardening their gazes. Then we'll do it. But it will be in a controlled environment at the Family Services office with a social worker present. And we leave the moment either of you feels uncomfortable, no questions asked. The meeting was arranged for the next day at the Family Services office. Bethany arrived in handcuffs, looking hollow, exhausted, and utterly broken, a stark contrast to the perfectly put-together woman who had stormed out of their home. When she saw Chloe, a raw, anguished cry escaped her lips, and she started sobbing uncontrollably. "Baby, Chloe, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." Chloe stood frozen for a moment, then, driven by an instinct beyond understanding, walked over and hugged her mother, burying her face in Bethany's shoulder. "I missed you, Mom," she whispered, her voice muffled by tears. "I miss you too, my sweet girl. More than you could possibly know." Lily hung back, watching weary and skeptical. Bethany noticed her and looked at her with something that might have been profound shame or perhaps just sorrow. "Lily, I don't even know how to begin to apologize for what I did to you. There's no excuse. None." "You're right," Lily said, her voice quiet and firm, devoid of warmth. "There isn't." Bethany flinched at the coldness in Lily's voice, but nodded, accepting it. "I deserve that. I deserve worse than that." "What?" Lily asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Why did you do it? I thought you loved me. I thought you cared about me. I did love you, Lily. I do love you. But Simon, he made me see things differently. He made me believe that you were the reason our family was struggling, that your trauma was poisoning our happiness. He convinced me that you'd be happier somewhere else, and that Chloe would be better off without the competition for attention, for love." "Competition," Lily exclaimed, her eyes flashing. "I never competed with Chloe. She's my sister." "I know that now, baby. I know that now," Bethany wept. But Simon had a way of twisting everything, making it seem so logical, so right. He said you reminded Arthur of his first wife, and that was preventing him from fully committing to our marriage, to our new life. He said Chloe was feeling neglected because you got all the attention for your problems, for your past. Chloe spoke up, pulling away from her mother slightly. "But that's not true. Lily never made me feel bad. I looked up to her. I know, baby, I know that now." But Simon was so very convincing. And I was lonely. Arthur was working so much, and you girls are growing up and didn't need me as much anymore. And Simon made me feel important, special, like I was finally seen. Arthur had remained silent, observing, but now he spoke, his voice measured. "Bethany, I need you to understand something. What you're describing, that's how predators work. They isolate their victims from their support systems. They chip away at their self-worth. They create artificial problems and then offer themselves as the only solution, the only way out. You were manipulated, Bethany, severely. That doesn't excuse what I did to Lily," she repeated, her gaze falling. "No, it doesn't, but explains it. And it's why Simon needs to be stopped permanently, so he can't do this to anyone else." Bethany turned to the prosecutor, who was present, listening intently. "What do you need from me?" "Everything. I'll tell you everything." "Everything," the prosecutor confirmed. "Every conversation, every manipulation tactic, every promise he made, every threat. We need to show the systematic pattern of his behavior, how he operated. He said if I ever betrayed him, if I ever told anyone the truth, he'd tell everyone that I was an unfit mother, that I was mentally unstable, that I'd lose Chloe forever. He said he had evidence." "What kind of evidence, Miss Rivers?" the prosecutor asked, exchanging glances with Arthur's lawyer. "Recordings of our private sessions, photos of me, vulnerable moments, things I confided in him that he could use against me. He kept everything." The prosecutor nodded. "Miss Rivers, those recordings and photos were obtained illegally. If he tried to use them, he'd only be adding more serious charges to his case. Blackmail, extortion. But I didn't know that. He made me believe he had power over me, that he controlled my future." Lily stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Mom, I recorded some of my sessions with him too. I have them on my phone. I can share those if it helps." Bethany looked at her stepdaughter with something approaching awe, a profound realization dawning on her face. "You were protecting yourself? Protecting all of us. I was protecting all of us." I just didn't realize it at the time. The trial of Simon Blackwood became a media sensation, dominating local and even some national news. His methods, his charming veneer, and the sheer calculated cruelty of his actions fascinated and horrified the public. Five other families, emboldened by Arthur's stand and Bethany's willingness to testify, came forward with eerily similar stories of manipulation and professional misuse by Blackwood. The man who had presented himself as a healer, a compassionate mental health professional, was revealed to be a cold, calculating predator who systematically destroyed families for his own gratification and financial gain. Bethany's testimony was devastating. She described in excruciating detail how Simon had subtly manipulated her into believing that her stepdaughter was a threat to her marriage and her biological daughter's well-being. How he had gradually isolated her from friends, family, and even her own instincts that might have questioned his sinister influence. How he had used her vulnerability and loneliness to control her completely, making her believe he was her only ally. "He made me believe that I was saving my family," she said on the witness stand, her voice trembling but firm. "That sacrificing Lily, sending her away, was the only way to preserve my marriage and protect Chloe. I see now that he was destroying everything I actually cared about, everything I held dear." Simon's defense tried to paint Bethany as a willing, malicious participant who was now lying to save herself, a jilted lover lashing out. But the overwhelming pattern evidence from the five other families, coupled with Lily's secretly recorded therapy sessions, proved beyond a doubt that Simon had been methodically planning and executing this manipulation for months, even years. In one particularly damning recording, played for the jury, Simon could be heard saying to Lily, his voice smooth and reassuring, "Your stepmother loves you, Lily, but she loves Chloe more. That's natural. Chloe is her real daughter, her blood. The question is whether you want to keep causing problems for people who are just trying to be happy, who are trying to build a new life." When that recording was played in court, the composure Simon had maintained throughout the trial finally cracked. He leaped from his chair, screaming about patient confidentiality, about illegal recordings, about invasion of privacy, destroying any lingering sympathy the jury might have had for him. The courtroom erupted as Simon, his face red and contorted with rage, started shouting accusations at the judge, the prosecutor, and even Arthur. "You don't understand what these people are capable of," he shrieked as bailiffs rushed to restrain him. "I was trying to save them from themselves. These broken families needed structure, needed someone to make the hard decisions for them. I was helping." His public outburst revealed the full extent of the narcissistic delusion that had driven his crimes. Here was a man who genuinely believed that destroying families, tearing children from their parents, was a therapeutic act, a merciful intervention for their own good. The bailiffs wrestled him back into his seat, but the damage was done. The jury had seen his true nature, not a misguided therapist, but a cold, remorseless predator who felt entitled to tear apart other people's lives for his own twisted satisfaction. The verdict was swift and decisive. Guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, child endangerment, ethics violations, and a dozen other charges related to the other families he'd victimized. Arthur felt a savage satisfaction, cold and absolute, as the judge read each guilty verdict. Every guilty was another nail in Simon's professional coffin, another year added to his inevitable, crushing sentence, another family vindicated. During victim impact statements, one by one, the family Simon had destroyed stood up to tell their stories. A mother whose teenage son had been convinced he was suicidal and needed institutionalization. A father who'd been manipulated into believing his daughter's severe depression was infectious to his younger children. A woman who'd been convinced by Simon to abandon her elderly, ailing mother because he claimed the stress was damaging her marriage to her new husband. When it was Lily's turn to speak, she walked to the podium, not with a shuffle of fear, but with her head held high, her shoulders squared. Lily sat at the edge of the witness chair, her feet barely touching the floor, a testament to her youth. Her hands were folded in her lap, tightly clasped, as if holding herself together. She didn't look at Bethany, who was weeping quietly in the gallery. She didn't look at Simon, who sat rigid, staring straight ahead. She looked only forward, calm, straight back, like she'd rehearsed this in her head 1,000 times, because she had. "My name is Lily," she began, her voice small but clear, unwavering. "I am 14. I live with my dad. Or I did until they sent me away." Her voice didn't tremble. That was what struck Arthur most. She wasn't scared, just tired. Tired in a way a child shouldn't have to be. "I was told I was unstable, too emotional, that I was upsetting my little sister, Chloe, making our home a sad place. But I wasn't. I was just trying to understand why my mom died and why my stepmom didn't want me around anymore." No one in the courtroom moved. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, her fingers frozen over the keys. "Mr. Blackwood told me I was poison," Lily said, her voice growing stronger, a steel edge creeping in, "that my presence was toxic, that my dad loved me too much and it was damaging the rest of the family, preventing them from being happy." Her words were clinical, delivered like facts on a page, but her eyes didn't blink, reflecting a profound, mature pain. "He told my mom that I needed to be away, that it would make everything better, that it was for my own good. So they packed my things without telling me, put me in a car, and sent me to a place with locks on the windows and a camera in the shower hallway, far away from my home." Arthur looked over at Bethany, who was now openly sobbing, her face buried in her hands. He didn't look away from Lily. "I remember sitting in that car, watching our house disappear behind me, thinking maybe I'd done something wrong. Maybe I really didn't belong anymore. Maybe they were better without me." She paused, took a deep, steadying breath, her gaze sweeping across the courtroom, landing momentarily on the unrepentant Simon. "I don't need anyone to apologize," she said, her voice still steady, unwavering, "but I want it on record. Real therapists don't separate families. They heal them." The applause that erupted from the public gallery was thunderous, defiant, but Simon never looked up from his hands. At sentencing, the judge was harsh, his voice filled with righteous indignation. "Mr. Blackwood, you used your esteemed position as a trusted mental health professional to prey on vulnerable families, to manipulate and exploit those who sought your help in their most desperate moments. You destroyed relationships, deeply traumatized children, and shamelessly betrayed the sacred trust placed in you by people seeking healing. Your actions were not therapy. They were nothing short of predation disguised as treatment." The judge leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "This court sentences you to 25 years in state prison, without the possibility of parole for 15 years. You will never practice therapy again in this state or any other. Your licenses are permanently revoked, and you are forever prohibited from any contact with minors or vulnerable adults upon your eventual release." Arthur watched Simon's face crumble as the full reality hit him, the arrogant facade finally shattering. 25 years. He would be an old man when he got out, broken and forgotten, his name synonymous with professional disgrace. Simon was led away in shackles, his career and freedom gone forever, a fitting end to a monstrous reign of psychological terror. Bethany, in exchange for her full cooperation against Simon, pleaded guilty to the financial fraud charges. The district attorney agreed to a plea deal, 3 years probation, significant community service, and full forfeiture of custody rights to Chloe in exchange for her testimony. The court acknowledged the extent of her manipulation and coercion by Simon, but emphasized that her actions still carried severe consequences, especially given the abandonment of Lily. She was allowed only supervised visits with Chloe once a month, under strict conditions, and remained under mandatory psychiatric evaluation indefinitely. It was a bleak future, but one she had brought upon herself. But Arthur's transformation was far from complete. The trial, the raw exposure to such calculated evil, had awakened something dark and calculating within him, something that found a chilling satisfaction in watching his enemies suffer complete, utter destruction. Simon's imprisonment wasn't enough. Arthur wanted to ensure the man's legacy, his very name, was completely erased from existence. Through his extensive medical connections and a tenacious private investigator he hired, Arthur discovered that Simon had been hiding substantial assets in offshore accounts, money systematically stolen from previous victims over the years. He promptly brought this information to the FBI, resulting in federal money laundering charges that added another decade to Simon's already lengthy state prison sentence. Arthur also arranged, discreetly, for Simon's doctoral dissertation to be reviewed by a panel of skeptical academics, and it was ultimately revoked when irrefutable evidence of plagiarism was discovered. His published research papers were systematically withdrawn from academic journals. Awards he'd received were publicly rescinded, and his name was meticulously, systematically erased from the professional world, as if he'd never existed. The private investigator had uncovered something else, something even more insidious. Simon Blackwood had a grown son, Daniel, who worked as a teacher in another state. Daniel had been estranged from his father for years, disgusted by his manipulative nature, but still maintained minimal, begrudging contact out of a sense of duty. Arthur, with meticulous planning, arranged to meet Daniel under the guise of discussing his father's crimes. During their carefully orchestrated conversation, Arthur slowly, carefully revealed compelling evidence that suggested Daniel's own childhood had been Simon's first testing ground for his manipulation tactics. "Your father didn't just destroy my family, Daniel," Arthur told him, his voice low and sympathetic. "He's been perfecting these techniques for decades. The evidence suggests he used remarkably similar methods on your mother during your parents' divorce, and on you." Daniel's face went pale as Arthur, with the cold precision of a surgeon, showed him documented patterns. The way Simon had isolated his first wife from her support system. The way he'd subtly convinced Daniel that his own mother was mentally unstable. The suspiciously timed boarding school recommendation that had separated Daniel from his mother at age 14, just as Lily had been targeted. The sickening realization hit Daniel like a physical blow. He'd been Simon's first victim, the prototype for all the families that followed. Daniel's response was swift, decisive, and brutally public. He wrote a searing public letter detailing his father's manipulative and predatory behavior toward his own family. He gave interviews to local and national media, his voice filled with righteous anger and long-suppressed pain. He testified before the state licensing board about Simon's horrific predatory behavior toward his own son, adding another layer of scandal. Most devastatingly, he visited Simon in prison, a final, chilling confrontation. "I know what you are," Daniel told his father through the bulletproof glass, his voice devoid of emotion. "I know what you did to me, to Mom, to all those families. And I want you to know that when you die in that cage, starved of the control and admiration you crave, I won't be at your funeral. No one will, because you never loved anyone. You only loved yourself, and nobody, not a single soul, ever truly loved you." Simon tried to respond, tried to manipulate his son one last time, a desperate flicker in his cold eyes, but Daniel simply turned and walked away, leaving his father alone in his misery. He legally changed his last name, moved across the country, and never spoke to his father again. Arthur received a call from the prison warden 2 weeks later. Simon Blackwood had been found in his cell, catatonic, staring blankly at the wall, completely unresponsive. The prison psychiatrist diagnosed him with complete psychological breakdown, a profound, irreversible mental collapse. He'd been transferred to the medical ward, where he would likely spend the rest of his sentence as an unresponsive shell, a vacant echo of the monster he once was. The predator who destroyed so many minds had finally broken completely under the crushing weight of his own evil. Arthur felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no sense of closure. Simon Blackwood had become irrelevant years ago, a ghost from a nightmare they'd all moved beyond. With Simon utterly destroyed and Bethany reduced to carefully supervised monthly visits with Chloe, Arthur could finally focus entirely on rebuilding his fractured family. But the entire harrowing experience had fundamentally changed him. The gentle, trusting, somewhat naive man who'd returned from that medical conference was gone, replaced by someone harder, more calculating, infinitely more protective, and acutely aware of the darkness that lurked beneath society's surface. Arthur threw himself into his daughter's lives with an intensity that bordered on obsessive vigilance. He attended every school event, monitored every friendship, meticulously researched every teacher. The girls understood his hypervigilance. They'd been through the same trauma, the same profound betrayal. Lily, now 16, had grown into a fiercely intelligent and independent young woman who trusted no one outside their small family circle. She'd started a widely popular blog about recognizing manipulation tactics and psychological abuse, which had gained a significant following among teenagers and young adults struggling with similar issues. Her writing was sharp, insightful, and empowering, but it also carried an underlying edge of cynicism and wariness that worried Arthur. Chloe, now 13, had become fiercely protective of both her father and sister. She monitored Bethany's monthly visits carefully, reporting anything that seemed manipulative or dishonest, armed with the knowledge of her mother's past deceptions. She'd appointed herself as the family's emotional guardian, a role that carried too much responsibility for someone her age, too much awareness. Arthur recognized the signs. They were all traumatized, all hypervigilant, all struggling to trust anyone outside their tight, insular unit. They needed help, but finding a therapist they could truly trust after Simon's profound betrayal of the therapeutic relationship felt impossible. It was Lily who, with her characteristic quiet wisdom, suggested the solution during a particularly tense family dinner. "What if we help each other, Dad?" she proposed, looking up from her plate. "What if we start a support group for families who've been through this exact kind of manipulation? Who better to understand and help than us?" The idea grew organically from there, nurtured by their shared pain and desire to help. Arthur used his vast medical connections to partner with legitimate, ethical family therapy organizations and mental health charities. Together, they created a unique support group specifically for families who'd been victimized by predatory or unethical mental health professionals. The first meeting was small, just 3 families, including theirs, gathered cautiously in a rented community hall. But word spread quickly through survivor networks and online forums. Within 6 months, they were running multiple groups across the state, with Arthur serving as the medical advisor and Lily and Chloe bravely sharing their story as peer counselors, their voices powerful testaments to resilience. The work was profoundly healing for all of them, helping other families recognize and recover from manipulation, from the insidious tactics of predators, gave their own devastating trauma meaning and purpose. They learned that their experience, while agonizing, had given them unique, invaluable insights into how predators operate and, more importantly, how families can protect themselves and rebuild. But Arthur's hard-won protective instincts remained. He had developed a formidable, discreet network of private investigators, forensic accountants, lawyers, and medical professionals who helped him meticulously investigate anyone who showed undue interest in his family or his medical practice. He conducted extensive background checks on new teachers, coaches, tutors, and even the parents of his daughter's closest friends. His medical practice became a model of protective protocols. Every new hire underwent extensive, detailed background screening. Patient interactions were carefully monitored, and therapy referrals were made only to vetted, highly reputable professionals with impeccable, untarnished reputations. The scars remained, but they were no longer bleeding. 5 years after that chilling Christmas Eve, when his world was shattered, when his life irrevocably fractured, Dr. Arthur Sterling received a call that brought everything full circle, a final, quiet resolution. Lily had just turned 21, now a brilliant senior at a top university, pursuing a degree in psychology with a focus on trauma and victim advocacy. Chloe was 18, newly accepted in a law school, sharper and more perceptive than ever, determined to prosecute crimes against children. That call was about Simon Blackwood. He was dead. The prison warden, his voice devoid of emotion, explained that Simon had never truly recovered from his profound psychological breakdown. He'd spent his final years as a hollow shell, unable to recognize visitors, unable to respond to stimuli, his mind a wasteland of his own making. He died alone in the prison medical ward, with no one to claim his body, a forgotten, broken man. Arthur felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no closure. Simon had become irrelevant years ago, a ghost from a nightmare they'd all moved beyond, a footnote in their healing journey. He shared the news with his daughters over dinner that night. The family gathered around their warm kitchen table, the lingering chill of winter outside a stark contrast to the warmth within. Lily, now 21, a college senior, had grown into a remarkable, compassionate young woman, her strength forged in fire. Chloe, 18 and college-bound, was planning to study law and eventually prosecute crimes against children, a burning sense of justice in her heart. "I keep thinking about something," Chloe said, breaking the silence after they had absorbed the news about Simon. "Remember how he used to say that he was helping families heal, that he was making us stronger? What about it?" Arthur asked, a faint smile touching his lips. "In a weird, terrible way, he was right," Chloe said, her gaze steady. "Not the way he meant it, of course, but what we went through, what he put us through, it made us who we are now. It made us fighters. It made us protectors of other families. His evil became our purpose." Lily nodded, a profound understanding in her eyes. "His destruction became our construction. We built something stronger together." Chloe raised her water glass in a toast, her voice clear and resonant. "To the family that couldn't be broken. To the family that couldn't be broken." Arthur and Lily echoed, their voices melding into a single, resolute chorus. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, soft, gentle flakes drifting down, the first snow of another Christmas season. But this time, the house was warm and bright, filled not with false cheer or chilling shadows, but with genuine love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of family.